So for this run I knew I was going to go with a gegenpress from the start and use players who aren't contracted to us until the embargo was lifted. Given our lack of squad depth, I put in a custom schedule of pure recovery to try and minimise injuries and training. The first team meeting was interesting in its brevity. I was soon given reason to be positive about the gegenpress approach when we recorded two 1-1 draws to start the season. As you'll see throughout the series, whenever I have reason to be optimistic, some shit slaps it away from me. Like this goal in a 4-0 loss when we were a man down in the third game week. I don't know what I did, but the man from the Chinese Football Gazette and I were in a state of hatred in less than a month of knowing each other. My team proved to be completely incapable of keeping a game at an even state, and we went on a losing streak that ended in a draw in game week 7, where I noticed that even though things were bad for us, we were far from the worst team in the league. Next week we were due to face the only team worse than us, and, as is tradition, our only keeper fractured his arm in the first 2 minutes, which then led to the following result in what I considered a must-win game. Our luck continued to falter as the cup draw put us against the strongest team in a division directly below us. The result was embarrassing, but it wasn't a surprise considering they had a striker worth up to $1 million compared to my players who were worth roughly 2k each. My spirits were then lifted when my next opponent expressed confidence in my ability. I responded with what I believed was a humble message and thanks. He then misinterpreted that as a sign of weakness. In the match that followed, they took the lead, we equalised, and my team once again demonstrated its inability to play an even state. The board insisted on a meeting of my future and I managed to blag my way through it without making a promise, and in doing so I secured my future past the transfer embargo.
Fun begins.
And let me say, seeing this pop up on the calendar was such a relief. The cavalry is coming. Except the day that our new squad were due to arrive, the board decided to call me for a second performance review. This time I didn't push my luck and I made a promise to improve my performance. Immediately after they accepted this, they called a second meeting where I was encouraged to throw one of my original players under the bus. Minutes after doing so, my new boys came. A few days after, we were given a fairly promising youth intake preview. Picked up so many people on desperation contracts that I ran out of wage budget, so had to start adding low knees so I could have additional depth without paying wages. Despite running out of the wage budget, I somehow managed to sign Dube, an unemployed 39-year-old Swazi midfielder who I became obsessed with because I did not expect to find an unemployed 39-year-old Swazi midfielder. Dube allowed me to switch to the meta 4-2-3-1 formation and became one of the best players on arrival. Our first match under this formation was incredible, where every shot on target was converted to a goal, and Dube provided evidence for why I love the social media feature in this game. 39 years old and appearing in his first ever professional match, somehow the fans mistake him for a youth talent. What happened in the remaining matches of my July trial period were a 1-1 draw against a top 4 team and a very unfortunate 3-2 loss against another top 4 team when they were a man down. It was very winnable, but alas. 4 points from 3 games was satisfactory to the board, and that's a satisfactory stopping point for me on this episode. And in the next session we'll have 11 games to recover a 10-point deficit, where a lot of the fixtures should be winnable.